So do you know much about like the process in between death? So you talked about everybody goes to heaven. Do you know much about the process from heaven to reincarnation or to becoming in a body again?
I haven't, that's not in my wheelhouse of anything that I've really studied or even explored from the spirit perspective. No, how I came about all of this is I have a mentor who's been my mentor for 30 years. She was my teacher. She taught me this stuff and she's now in her 80s. And when I see her, she does healings on me.
Hmm.
I do healings on people all over the world. She's the only one that does healings on me with any regularity. And it's maybe once a quarter that I get one. And throughout the years, Derek, when I'm with her in person, I'm laying face up on a massage table. I got a blankie. There's a pillow under my head, and I got a blankie over me. And so I'm comfortable. I'm snuggly. And when she starts doing a healing on me, all my deceased loved ones' spirits line both sides of the table and they participate in the healing.
Hmm.
So my parents, my grandparents, my late sister, even my late dog, her spirit is there too. Well, one day, this spirit of a deceased pope showed up. And he had the whole outfit on, the hat and the shepherd's rod and the whole 9 yards. And I said, well, who are you? And he said, I'm Clement. And I said, okay. I never heard of a Pope Clement. And he said, yeah, I was number 6. And I said, okay, may I help you? Kind of like, why are you here? And he said, you're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies. And I said, yeah, I'm not interested in that. I'm not doing that. I'm a businesswoman. People will think I'm nuts. And he said, yeah. Just get on with it, because the death and dying process has been so bastardized over the millennia that people are so afraid to die, and there's nothing to be afraid of. And so it's your mission here, basically, this is why you're here, is to teach the world what happens when somebody dies. And I said, yeah, whatever. I'm not doing that. So, Derek, I get in the car to go home a few minutes later. And just for kicks, I did a search on Pope Clement the Sixth. Well, come to find out, this guy was in office during the Black Plague when 2/3 of Europe died. And he's
Wow.
best known for his prayers for the dying and his prayers for the dead. And I thought, all right, you can't make this stuff up. And so then it took several years. And this was several years after my mother had passed, and I had helped many other families and had come up with the 12 phases of transition and all of that. And he said, this is basically your life's mission. So that's what I'm doing. Several years ago, I sold my surgical device manufacturing company and then started a radio show and a podcast and wrote my books. And here I am, educating the world what happens when somebody dies.
Wow. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, nothing like
Yeah.
getting prodded by a dead pope, right?
Yeah. So when he first sort of issued that I don't know, directive for you, what was the first thing you were like, okay, now I'm going to do this? What was the next thing you did?
Well, no, I just was going, I'm not doing that for years. And then the catalyst that really got me off of my rear end to do something with this was I was sitting in church and I was in between my son and my husband at the time. My son was, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13. And the priest from the altar during his sermon said, wouldn't it be amazing if somebody could tell us if we really are taken to heaven by angels? And and it's a glorious experience, because there's a prayer said at every Catholic funeral called In Paradisum. And in Latin, it means into paradise. And it talks about how the angels and your loved ones will greet you and lead you into paradise. And Father Fallon said, wouldn't it be great if somebody could tell us if that actually happens? And I'm getting elbowed by my husband and my son, because they knew that about the Pope Clement story, and that, I was being led to write a book and teach the world. And so I finally just said, okay, God, really? From the pulpit in the middle of mass, you're giving me grief about this? So then I really just set to work to do it. And I got the, what I call golden ovary courage to be able, guys have brass balls and girls have golden ovaries,
Mhm.
the golden ovary courage to be able to get this information out there. Interesting, when I was writing Angelic Attendants, Derek, I just researched to find out where did that In Paradisum prayer originate. And what I learned was it began as a 5th century Gregorian chant. So perhaps it took till the 5th century till someone was well educated enough that they could read and write, because everybody was illiterate
Mhm.
till what, 150 years ago or so, most people were. And certainly some of the most learned people were men. And at that time, they were living in monasteries and synagogues. So I found that fascinating, that concept and many other concepts, every main philosophy, every religion, certainly in the literature, they talk about spirits and ghosts and angels and things like that. The literature that comes to mind is Shakespeare's King Lear. And certainly one of the most well-known one is old Ebenezer Scrooge and the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future in the Dickens A Christmas Carol. Most people have heard of that at some point. So the information's there. It's in all the holy texts. It's ancient, been there for forever. Maybe it just took for us to be well educated enough that we are able to read and write, and we've come full circle from being super proof based, and you're a scientist, so you like proof. And and what's proof? Is proof being able to identify the spirits that are in the room, and the family members can identify, okay, yeah, that was Grandma Ann and that was Grandpa Joe, and that collie spirit that's in the room was our dog Fluffy that we had for 12 years. And yes, Grandma did grow up on a farm, as I'm describing the farm animal spirits that are in the room, and they were her pets. So evidence comes through from spirit to let us know, okay, yeah, this is really real.